diazepam, midazolam, zolpidem, benzodiazepines, amitriptyline, doxepin, mirtazapine, antidepressants.
If you're wondering, these are pharmaceuticals that help people sleep. And people who take these, you should already know, are suffering from insomnia, the inability to fall asleep, stay asleep, or get good quality, refreshing sleep.
Enter stage right. Or was it stage left? Did I lift up the toilet seat? Well, sure I did. Maybe I should check. Violet! I forgot to return a call. Alright, note to self. Call Violet first thing tomorrow morning. Did I lift up the toilet seat? Oh, I can't sleep. I'm so tired, but I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't sleep.
Would we be so distressed if insomnia only affected us during the night? Much like how a substandard meal or bad sex might depress us temporarily? Because by the next day, we would have forgotten all about it and moved on with our lives with some sense of normalcy.
But no, insomnia has other ideas. Not sleeping at night has a carry-on effect that leaves you sleepy in the daytime, fatigued, and diminished in concentration.
Ugh. That was a really rough night. Didn't get to sleep till 5 a.m.
Fine if it was a night or three, but what happens when this inability to sleep drags on for weeks and months? Without a great stretch of the imagination, one can see how this carry-on effect can quickly turn into a knock-on effect on our well-being and daily performance. Insomnia is a daily, 24-hour, 7 days a week sleeping disorder.
While it is enriching hosting a sleep science program, this episode on insomnia is of particular interest to me. I myself am having trouble with the Zs. This week we'll be zooming in on the science of insomnia. Does warm milk before bed really help? What about reading? Experiments this week will put me through the paces of remedies for insomnia. First order of business is to check in with our friendly Sleep Society president, Dr. Lim Lee Ling. After all, my insomnia is self-diagnosed, and my understanding of the problem is disparagingly broad. Surely it can't be as simple as no sleep equals insomnia, or can it? So, Dr. Lim, I occasionally have periods where I have trouble falling asleep or have interrupted sleep during the night. Does that constitute insomnia? And if not, then what is insomnia exactly?
Well, insomnia is a symptom, and it refers to usually difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, or a perception of unrefreshing sleep. So the most common form of insomnia we probably see are the first two, that people have difficulty falling asleep. So these people may toss and turn in bed for hours before they eventually drift off to sleep after several hours. Then we also have those people with difficulty maintaining sleep. So they may fall asleep quickly, but they tend to awake at about 2 to 3 a.m. These people have what we call early morning awakening. And the last category of insomnia are those people who actually have a perception of unrefreshing sleep even though they've slept for 6, 7 hours. So they have no difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep, but when they wake up, they still feel tired. These symptoms constitute what we refer to as insomnia.
That last category, the perception of unrefreshing sleep, how does that happen? I mean, if you're having 8 hours sleep, does it mean that the sleep isn't good quality sleep? Or
people who have got the perception of unrefreshing sleep, usually something disrupts the normal sleep pattern so that they don't enter into deep sleep. So insomnia becomes a problem when it's persistent, going over several weeks, and it impairs our social, occupational functioning. I think most of us have probably had the occasional bout of insomnia, stressful periods, and it's a day or two and then it passes off. But for the type of serious insomnia, which probably affects about 10 to 30% of the population, it's quite persistent. And as doctors, sleep specialists, we probably just see the tip of the iceberg.
So you mentioned stress. Now, does that then mean it's more a psychological thing, or is it psychological and physical, or?
Okay, well, this brings us to the question of what are the common causes of insomnia. The two common conditions, medical conditions which cause insomnia, are anxiety and depression. And then the one that's not really classified as a medical disease is stress. So between stress, anxiety and depression, I would say these constitute the vast majority of cases of that type of insomnia I refer to as difficulty falling asleep and difficulty staying asleep. So classically, the people who have difficulty falling asleep are very anxious. So they have this nervousness as the 0 hour of bedtime approaches. Right. Then they keep thinking about sleep. Oh, can I sleep? Will it be a bad night?
It turns into a bit of a vicious cycle. The anxiety causes the difficulty to get to sleep, and then they get anxious about not being able to sleep as well.
Yes, and they usually come in with all kinds of questions like, if I don't sleep, will I die? Will I get brain damage? Will I get dementia? The other type of insomnia, which I said, where they wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, this is a classic symptom of depression. So the person goes into sleep, but they get this arousal in the middle of the night, which is not due to a physical reason. Insomnia can be quite gratifying to treat because a lot of patients have undiagnosed anxiety and depression, so they respond very well to treatments which are suitable for anxiety or depression. But a lot of people also don't actually have a disorder, they actually have stress. And this is the most common. Lots of us have stress. So a lot of people, when they have too much stress, they cannot enter into a state of sleep. So to put it simply, when we go to sleep, right, it's actually a natural state which ensues after being awake for about 16 hours. Then we get 8 hours of rest and restoration, which is what we call sleep. So for people who reach the end of the day, if they are unable to sleep, it's usually because their arousal level is too high.
So are there certain types of people who are more prone to getting insomnia? Are they the more highly strung people?
There's a certain personality type which we call type A, the people who are more obsessive compulsive, highly strung. This type of people are more predisposed to insomnia. So certain kinds of insomnia can run in families. We also get professionals, at the peak of their careers. Then their type of insomnia is due to stress, usually work stress.
The longer I stayed, the more worrying it got. I seemed to be checking more of those boxes Dr. Lim mentioned. The plot thickens.
My suspicion has gathered legs since my meeting with Dr. Lim. Of all the symptoms she mentioned, I have trouble sleeping, I don't feel refreshed in the morning, I feel fatigued. The good news is, insomnia can be managed and possibly overcome. Not all is doom and gloom for the eternally exhausted. I just have to get an accurate diagnosis, and that's where I'm headed next. As we understand it, everyone suffers from insomnia at some point in their lives. But the underlying causes are many.
What's important is that I nip the problem in the bud before it starts to vine over my life. I'm waiting for a consultation with a senior consultant psychiatrist with the Department of Psychiatry and Sleep Disorders Unit, Dr. Ng Beng Yong. Dr. Ng will be able to make a diagnosis and offer me ways to better manage my insomnia, or better still, put this beast to sleep. Pun definitely intended. And believe me, the irony isn't lost on me.
Uncle, you're here to see Dr. Ng also?
Yes, I have an appointment with him this morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so do I. I'm having some problems sleeping.
I can sleep also.
Really?
Since many years ago.
Really?
Yes. Sometimes whole night I can't sleep. And then I have to see Dr. for treatment.
So is your sleeping disorder completely cured now, or is it something that you still have to?
Yeah, I think now I can sleep quite well.
That's very good.
I do singing, reading also.
So you recommend singing and reading for me?
And your good attitude towards your life is important also.
Singing, reading, good attitude towards your life.
Yes.
I like that. At the start of this series, I raised some concerns about my less than savory sleeping habits, suspected insomnia being one of them. And that was when I was handed one of these sleep diaries and asked to fill it in diligently, as it would point the way towards my diagnosis.
All I had to do was systematically note down my sleep hygiene every day for a fortnight. Basic practices like sleeping time, sleeping duration, did I eat before I sleep, did I consume alcohol, etc., etc.
Hey, hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Good
to
Very
see
nice
you.
to see you. Hi.
Here's my sleep diary, which I've dutifully filled in.
Maybe I can find a bit more about your insomnia story first before we come to the sleep diary.
Okay. Over the last few months, maybe 3-4 months perhaps, haven't been sleeping as well as I usually do, I guess. On average, sometimes I get 4 hours of sleep, and this is like interrupted sleep through the night.
How often does this happen?
It happens most nights. Oddly enough, just sit on a chair in the afternoon, I would probably doze off and get into a deeper sleep than I do actually sleep at night.
Suppose you're lying in bed, not able to sleep, Adrian. Yeah. What are the thoughts that will go on in your mind?
My mind just seems to be racing. And one thing I do, I am guilty of, is the last thing I do before switching off the light is be on my laptop. And I'm already in bed with my laptop.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I have to be, told off to shut it down.
Do you drink coffee?
I do.
Just 1 cup in the morning.
One, sometimes two.
Do you happen to enjoy chocolates?
Actually, no.
They contain caffeine as well.
Oh, not really.
Do you do any exercise?
Very occasionally. Just simply not enough time in the day.
How's your mood in the daytime?
I do find that sometimes I'm a little bit irritable and kind of I snap at people.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing so much information.
You're welcome.
Now we go to your sleep diary.
Okay.
Yeah, Adrian, so maybe you can just explain to us what all these abbreviations and what they mean and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So all the M's are the meal times. C is caffeinated beverage.
So it looks like here you actually slept quite well, isn't it?
One of those rare nights.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, no problems here at all. Yeah. What happened here on this night?
Yeah, there was a certain project that I was quite excited to get my hands on doing, and there was a choice between either waking up the next morning to do it or to do it right when it was fresh in my mind. And I made the choice to get out of bed. I got out of bed, went on the computer, and even after it was finished, I got back to bed. I still couldn't sleep. I guess I was just kind of excited about it, I suppose.
So I think here the problem is that you don't have enough time to allow yourself to switch off mentally. Because most of us will need an hour or so to calm down so that we can allow ourselves to negotiate the transition between wakefulness and sleep. So coming back to here, so I noticed that you actually drank alcohol in the evening.
Yes. Partly because I quite like it.
Okay. Okay. Looks like I have a very good understanding of your sleep problems right now.
Okay.
So maybe I'll go on to explain to you why you have this sleep problem.
Right.
So certainly there are many factors coming into play. Okay. They will increase your arousal level, and therefore you cannot sleep well. So the one factor that I can identify is use of alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. And also what we call the inadequate sleep hygiene. And another big factor is what we call conditioning. So I'm going to explain all these factors to you one by one. So your use of alcohol, so that can be quite tricky because for some patients, they actually find that alcohol helps them to fall asleep. But then alcohol does lead to other problems. It leads to what we call fragmentation of sleep.
Right.
Every 2 or 3 hours you wake up. So this is the effects of alcohol. It prevents you from getting very good sleep, very deep sleep. Then your lack of exercise. So yeah, it's very important to have a certain amount of exercise, at least 5 times a week. Yep.
What?
Yes, and it has to be to your faster heart rate, makes you breathe faster. Things like doing housework doesn't count. Yes, a lot of patients ask me that whether housework counts or not. It doesn't. This thing about sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is a set of behaviors that we do in the daytime and also nighttime that will cause us to sleep better or sleep worse. So you mentioned that you will bring your laptop to bed. It's quite a serious problem. So if you are so used to doing your work in bed, after a while you kind of associate the bed with using your laptop, with doing work, rather than with sleep.
Is it a bad idea also to watch TV in bed?
Yes, all of us should keep the bed for sleep and for intimacy and nothing else. But it'd be good to have a routine every night, having a cold bath or a warm bath, a glass of milk. So I'm going to pass you this CD. So we will teach you a method called progressive muscle relaxation.
Okay.
So basically it gets you to contract your muscle groups one by one and learning to contract and then relax.
I see.
So it may take a while before you master the technique.
Okay.
Yeah, and then once you kind of master the technique, you can use the method to help you negotiate the transition between wakefulness and sleep.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
Really? This new age living therapy stuff works? I hear those at home thinking.
Now, Dr. Ng has prescribed to me a very special soundtrack to help me sleep. It's called the Progressive Muscle Relaxation CD, and it's supported by the Singapore Sleep Society. So, let's get some sleep. Last night, I put into practice some conditioning exercises to help me with my insomnia. I stayed away from my bedroom until it was time to go to sleep, and I forced myself not to think about my work, which didn't really work. Well, Dr. Ng, I gave this a try, and I have to say, it is actually very relaxing, but I imagine it's something that I'd have to put into practice on a regular basis for a period of time before I can actually feel the effects.
Yes, so the key here is actually you need to practice and rehearse.
So Dr. Ng, are there any other factors I might be able to change that might be able to help me sleep? For example, my sleep environment?
So I think certainly we need to pay attention to the temperature of the room. So if it's too cold, that may cause you to wake up in the middle of the night. At the same time, if it's too warm, that may also prevent you from falling asleep. At night when you sleep, there are certain stages of the sleep where there's hardly any muscle tone around the neck. So you do need the pillow to support your head.
Right. What about the amount of light? I've been told that as far as possible, surround yourself in total darkness.
Yep. Our brain will produce this hormone of darkness called melatonin. So you need to be exposed to darkness, then the melatonin will surge in the blood.
Melatonin helps to...
Yep, and that will enable you to fall asleep. So if you're exposed to bright light too late at night, then that will push back the surge in melatonin.
What about sound level, noise level?
Correct. I think those are very important factors as well. Is your home environment very noisy?
It's quite quiet usually,
It's good to have some white noise. But some people, they can't fall asleep if the environment is too quiet.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Some people like to have some background noise, some white noise. And remember the last session, you also mentioned that on certain nights when you go to bed, then you start to think about the activities that you did in the daytime, and then what you're going to do the next night. Do you still have that problem?
Well, I'm trying to manage that.
Actually, that is what we call, rumination. In the evening, 7 to 7:30, you can actually sit down, get out a piece of paper, and list down all your concerns, all the tasks that you need to do the next day. So later on, when at night, when you're trying to sleep, you find your mind wandering again, then you just tell yourself, tomorrow I can refer to the piece of paper.
Right.
So it's more like, teaching yourself how to compartmentalize your life. Like certain time of the day, you do certain things. Then bedtime is meant for sleep, for resting. I think the last session, we also talked about your exercise.
Well, I obviously need to get more exercise. But is there a time in the day where I should avoid exercise?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I do have patients who go to the gym very late at night after work. After they go home, they can't sleep.
So that should be avoided generally.
We have this thing called core body temperature.
Right.
So at night, before you start to feel sleepy, the core body temperature will actually come down. So if you exercise very close to your bedtime,
the temperature rises.
Temperature rises, and that prevents you from falling asleep.
So, Dr. Ng, are there any other techniques apart from this muscle relaxation?
So today, what I can do is I can teach you a technique called visualization technique.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Sure. So now maybe you can choose a dot on the ceiling. Just going to focus on the ceiling. You may find your eyelids becoming heavier and heavier. Just focus on my voice. I want to imagine that you are standing on top of a very beautiful staircase. You have reached the bottom of the staircase and you feel very, very relaxed. I want you to imagine that you are somewhere in nature, and therefore, anytime that you feel like it, you can use all these methods, to calm yourself down. And 3, and 2, and 1. Yes, welcome back, Adrian. How was that for you?
It's very good, actually. It's very relaxing. I don't want to leave.
Cognitive behavior therapy and progressive muscle relaxation. If these practices seem familiar to you, that's because they are. We all do it in our own little way. A warm glass of milk, soft music, reading before bed. These activities relax us and get us ready for sleep.
We may teach patients how to do something we call progressive muscle relaxation. We teach them to relax specific muscle groups in turn. So if the patient is actually able to practice this before bedtime, instead of what they used to do, which is fretting and thinking, oh no, I can't sleep, it's going to be another bad day, you know, all that sort of catastrophic thinking, if they can replace that with relaxing techniques which we teach them, then gradually they can fall to sleep naturally. So they have this ritual of relaxing themselves. For any new habit to take effect, it takes about at least 4 to 8 weeks. So during this time when they're learning it, that's when the sleeping pills and other drug therapies
You
come
don't get
in.
anxious about that as well.
So a lot of people miss this part. So they never get to transition themselves out of pills because they didn't learn any natural behavioral techniques. They didn't learn to change their maladaptive ways of thinking. So in a typical CBT or cognitive behavior therapy program, typically in the classical forms, which have been well studied to be very effective, they go over several weeks, and the patient may come once a week to rehearse those routines which have been taught, usually by a psychologist who's trained in this. And they'll learn it over several weeks. And then by the end of 8 weeks, they should be on cruise control, they've learned it, and they're fine. Then little by little, we taper off the drugs. And by research, this has been shown to be the most effective long-term treatment. Then they don't need us anymore because they've already learned to rest and relax themselves and fall to natural sleep.
We forget things. We forget that the bedroom is not an office. We forget that there's a leisurely part to every day, and that not every moment has to be frantic and crammed with that carpe diem attitude. And from this episode of Chasing Sleep, it's surprising to learn that we can forget how to do the most basic and fundamental of things. In my case, I've forgotten how to sleep. Just lying down, closing my eyes.
I've forgotten how to sleep because of a combination of stress and anxiety, and failure to adhere to a basic level of sleep hygiene. I've forgotten the basic good of having a wind-down routine and waking up at the same time every day. So what are the consequences? I have to learn self-motivation, learn to unlearn some things, and learn to relearn other things. In my case, I'm learning the most basic of things that even babies have no problems doing. Sleep. That's humbling.